what you should see is a presentation with an introduction slide. Can I get a confirmation?
Yep, we can see it, Ernesto.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mindy. Okay, so let's talk about remote coaching. But before we do that, just going to provide some information on how to connect with us. I am the founder and president of Agile Genesis. We have several social media channels and ways to connect with us. These are the ones. I have my own LinkedIn account here, which is direct, and I'm pretty active in it. So if you have questions and if you want to touch base, feel free to reach out by any of these social media channels. And if you're interested in our classes, of course, feel free to visit agilegenesis.com, where we have classes on schedule, on scaling Agile, and opportunities for coaching engagements for different organization and transformational goals. Right? That's it for that shameless self-promotion. Let's move into some of the topic areas that we're here to discuss. So today we're going to talk about coaching. And before we do that, I want to establish some common definitions, right? I've modified these to fit our discussion. So for today, these will be our definition. When we talk about coaching, we're talking about seeking performance improvement from team members, from individuals, and from the team as well. Training is more about imparting knowledge, seeking for individuals to understand certain material and certain topics, right? So coaching about performance, about being active on the job, inspecting and adapting, if you will, right? So with that, and knowing the difference between those, let's talk about distributed teams and what we mean when we talk about distributed Agile. Distributed Agile are for those individuals that aren't familiar with the term. If you are connecting from anywhere outside a co-located office space, you are part of a distributed team. If you are practicing Agile in the way of Scrum or Kanban or any other type of implementation, you are part of a distributed Agile team. The Agile team members in a distributed environment tend to have challenges in specific areas as per some of the studies that I've conducted, and they are in 5 areas that start with tools. Tools is one of the main areas that individual Agile team members are challenged by. That is the technology necessary to collaborate effectively among the Agile teams and among the organization. It's one of the top challenges. The other is the role and the clarity around the responsibility of the individuals and the new responsibilities that come with some of the ways of working in a distributed environment, right? The third one are the events, the logistics, the facilitation. How do we do this effectively? Things like time zone get in the way, among other logistics consideration. Artifacts. How do we visually radiate the information when they are hitting in a digital in the digital desktop, for example, right? Or how do we make sure that we're seeing the same thing if we are basing it on reports that might be coming from a digital tool? So the keeping of those artifacts, the maintenance of those artifacts becomes an additional consideration. And lastly, the techniques. How do we improve the collaboration between the team members in such a way that allows for that facilitation and that whiteboarding and ideation and all those things that we used to do in the office to work effectively in a distributed environment? As coaches, it is important that we are able to first articulate what these challenges are and recognize that they are new challenges in a distributed environment. And for us ourselves as coaches, there are particular challenges that we're going to talk about. So I wanted to kind of get a quick idea in terms of what might be some of the challenges that you are facing as a coach when you are engaging teams in a remote setting. And Mindy was kind enough to put that out, and I believe that is already in progress. We have a poll going. Please let us know so that we could also get your perspective. Okay. And I'll pause there for a second and encourage you to fill out the poll, because I'm going to give you some of the observations that we've seen. So that might skew some of the things that you will include in that poll. So go ahead and fill out that poll, and I'll switch to the next slide with the hopes that you've already had the opportunity to offer your thoughts. So some of the remote coaching challenges that we observe, and some of the more common ones, funny enough, they're similar to the ones that team members face. The technology it's a big one. The idea that it's a slow process for us coaches to be onboarded into an organization, and for us to identify all of the necessary tools and start to use some of those tools. It's a challenge. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about each of these in separate topics of the session today. Accountability, the team members and the stakeholders' participation, their communication, and their level of trust. It's harder to capture and obtain and grow in a distributed setting as coaches. The logistics is also there, right? The conflicting meetings, absent members, what do we do when we can't get in touch with someone? A lot of times we don't even know where some of the meetings are happening or how they're happening, right? So orienting to those things becomes a challenge as well. And lastly is the concept of knowledge, probably also awareness, right? But then the acronym wouldn't have been as neat, right? The idea that we tend to have low visibility into some of the organization key activities, some of the key members, and any of the other aspects that we tend to pick up by osmosis as we walk the floor in a physical location, right? What's the company culture like? Who are the individuals that are those silent leaders are more difficult to identify in a remote setting, right? So again, highlighting the difference, because when we are coaching in a physical environment, we tend to have some of our own techniques that we developed over time, and we can walk in and sort of see where the people are gathered and slowly get into conversations that allow us to gather more information. Someone much smarter than me once said that remoteness simply highlights some of the inefficiencies that we've had for a long time, right? So the idea that be more methodical about the process that we follow to coach our clients, to coach our teams, to coach the leadership is necessary in a remote environment, so that those inefficiencies aren't amplified by the fact that we can't do it ad hoc as much or at all, right?